Okay, Karl. So recently we talked about what is a smallholder farmer, and we kind of talked through the concepts of like work versus ownership, and why maybe there's issues in terms of how that labor process and value creation is made and understood. One of the things that I think, again, the complexity of the supply chain for most people, that it bothers me, and I want to kind of hit on and hear your thoughts, is this this division of labor. Like why people growing coffee, why the farmers still remain powerless, and understanding that essentially we maybe understand that if they could like have more power, whether it's like horizontally or vertically integrating, but why that doesn't even necessarily work. But really splitting that up and understanding that division and why it bottlenecks, then keeping them in that position of poverty or powerlessness. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, of course, not all farmers are powerless. Like we've talked about some farmers, like we're talking about like the haciendas who have been enormously powerful in the history of the coffee supply chain. Less so since traders have become transnational and in many cases roasters as well, and the just fragmentation of coffee growing around the world. But I think some are quite powerful, the ones that are selling their coffee in auctions, because they don't even know how high a price to put on it. That, let's put it in an auction. I think this is like the ultimate power move. Like, you guys fight amongst yourself and let me know. So there is some of that. Yeah, but definitely the majority, like we talked about in the last video, of smallholder farmers or heavy commodity producers, these folks who must keep producing coffee no matter what the conditions to be able to reproduce labor or survive, to get up and do it again. And yeah, there was, I guess, this movement a while back, 15 years or so or more, but maybe it's still around direct trade. Because there's this notion that, oh, coffee is getting sold for so high prices somewhere to some consumer, and but the farmer is getting so little. This is like so terrible. So somebody must be taking all the money in the middle. So let's make a direct trade. It would be amazing, because it must be just like these intermediaries who are just so nasty and are taking all the money, because they're bad fellows or whatever. But I think this has also come out of fashion, because so many people have said, all right, well, I can go sell some coffee. So they like have a cousin in, I don't know, a cousin somewhere else in the world. I've heard this a million times. So, oh, my cousin can help me sell a couple of bags of some roasters, and we're going to make our own import company. We're going to be the next multinational. It's going to be great. But of course, it's not so easy. And I think this is there's a division of labor. So there are bottlenecks. There are certain functions in the chain that somebody really needs to do, that most small farmers who spend their time farming, because they are the actual ones doing it, don't have time to also run an import company. Right. So then there's been this counter revolution, this like a countervailing force that, but actually we need to celebrate our intermediaries because they're doing hard work. But farmers are really poor and they maybe don't need to be. So this is weird. What's happening? But I think, like, well, of course, it can be both. Like, there can be important jobs that these individuals are doing, because there's a lot of work to be done in the supply chain. But these bottleneck links in the chain can also be extracting surplus or extracting value created by others, probably farmers. So definitely happens. So one thing is division of labor, to be able to carry out those functions without those people, without people who are taking advantage of their bottleneck position and exerting power to appropriate surplus. Another thing is being able to do this at the same level of efficiency, with the same, what they call, transaction cost or cost of circulation. Like, I mean, if I call up the MSC or whoever, the shipping lines, I'm probably not going to get the same type of deal as if like a big transnational trading company calls up the same shipping line, access to credit, whatever. And of course, a lot of these costs are also determined by power relations. But putting those aside for now, one thing is the cost of doing it. Another thing is the ability to have access. Yeah, so this is like this stalemate going on. Direct trade is the best, even though it's going to be super costly because, I mean, yeah, we can sell to roasters, but we're also getting screwed by all the other service providers along the way that we don't have any power against. And we're doing a little bit of a lot of stuff. So it's going to be less efficient. On the other side, oh, we need these intermediaries because they're going to help us get the best coffee. It's amazing. So yeah, we have internet, so we don't need like actual coffee hunters anymore. But we also need somebody to take care of all this stuff, and they get us. And but of course, there's an undeniable incentive to get the best coffee for the lowest price to sell to the roaster, because that's how you get business. That's how you keep business. In order for an importer to have really low prices and really good coffees in their spot lists, I mean, of course, that comes at the expense of farmers. So that incentive structure is just in conflict, no matter how much you say that this is a win-win. Not that all importers are terrible. Under capitalism, everybody's just maximizing. That's how it works. I'm not going to pretend, and I don't think anybody should pretend it's not that way. But I mean, I think between these two extremes, there is also a combination of farmers. Probably, if we're talking about small farmers coming together to put together their scale, to be able to do things in a scaled, efficient way, but also being able to integrate vertically. And there's examples of this happening. There are big challenges, but I think this is one of the most interesting alternatives. And I mean, if we look at this structurally, maybe the only thing that makes sense, like if we're not just going to like have capitalists stop being capitalists, like don't reproduce your capital so much. You're doing it too well. Stop it. I don't think it's going to happen. So I think really the only way is to change these incentive structures, which requires changing, who owns the infrastructure and who owns the processes, whose interests are these processes even serving. So I think, I mean, going horizontal between many farmers in order to get to an interesting scale to be able to do these processes in an efficient way, but also based on this collective scale to be able to integrate vertically in a way that makes sense, to be able to circumvent the bottlenecks that make it impossible to achieve prosperity through the structure we have now. That doesn't mean destroying them. It's about having options. So like having bargaining power is about having options. It's about having the power to walk away. So that if you go to that bottleneck and they're the only game in town, you have to take their deal no matter what. Well, it can be a really bad deal and you'll still take it because, like we said, if you're a petty commodity producer, you need to produce and you need to sell in order to survive.
Right. And here's the product. I have it on hand, and well, shit, I'm already out money from the investment I made, and I have a loan that's high percentage. So you're just give me the cash or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I guess the efficient market theory would be that, well, if one of them is big and inefficient and you're making too much profit, then another one will come in and say, I'll take a little bit less profit and I'll give you a better option. And maybe that happens somewhat in some cases, like just looking at Colombia and Southern Huila, for example, there are so many buyers so that, farmers have relatively good bargaining power. But of course, that goes only up until the importer level because they're not getting past that. So they can very competitively get a good percentage of whatever the importer is willing to pay, but no more than that. But other places, it's not so efficient as that. And I don't think we can trust that monopoly will not emerge the way it always has emerged throughout the history of capitalism. But I think a better way to deal with that is distributed ownership and distributed control among workers or farmers, of these mechanisms, of this machinery that allows the coffee trade to take place, by integrating vertically, but not like one little farm drilling 20 bags to somebody in Amsterdam because they have a cousin. But I mean, putting together like solid structures, like, I mean, has happened. I've had problems or big difficulties, because, like, I mean, taking on monopoly is not so easy. But I mean, there are things, there are very inspiring cases out there that we can see and learn from, and hopefully, I hope that more of these kind of things will take place, because honestly, I don't see a really good alternative.
This is just like a random, like, for my own, like what, and we'll wrap this up for this conversation, but like, what do you feel at least is one of the largest missing links to make that happen, for vertical or horizontal or holistic integration to happen? Because, you know, in my head, I'm thinking about like skills and giftings, like what people are good at. And it's like, okay, so we need something to happen in order for that to happen, right? And it may not be farmers making explicit decisions, you know, and maybe it's one farmer being like, God damn it, I'm tired of this, and getting his whole community to come together and like make a cohesive decision. But like, for you, and maybe nothing comes to mind, but do you feel like, is there something or a specific skill set or a specific talent that's needed most in these scenarios to see that happen? Is it coordination? Is it logistics? Is it inspiring people? I don't, you know, like, what is it that's not existing now to like bring that available as an option?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that are lacking, but a lot of those will fall into place once the system exists. Like, talent, like who will be the admin and the accounting and the logistics of like farmers co-ops, for example. It's notoriously hard to find these people because they all migrate to cities. Once they're going to grow up in this place, maybe go to university, go into city because there's, you know, more job options, whatever people, you know, find interesting. But that's a thing I think that will take care of itself once something like this exists. Because like once the job exists, once there's like something viable to do, that's not just like fighting an endless uphill battle, like is sometimes being like a base cooperative that just sells to exporters. I mean, like you're not circumventing any bottlenecks, so there's not a lot of room to maneuver. But anyway, I think there are two. Basically, one is maybe the biggest is just like a lack of understanding on both sides, like for roasters, understanding exactly what are the capabilities, challenges, and resources and priorities of farmers and their representatives, and also for farmers and co-ops and whoever the representative structures are, understanding exactly how like how roasters business models work and what they need, when, and how in order for it to be viable. Because of course this has been set up by, you know, the transnational trading scheme that's existed for a really long time now. So both of their business models have adapted to that, and that gets into the second one, that is the extremely financialized nature of commodities trading. That everything is done through derivatives. That, you know, being a trader is being a banker, basically. Roasters getting coffee on consignment as like a rule of thumb in a lot of contexts. And then farmers, of course, like cash in hand only all the time. So undoing that is going to be really hard. And I mean, it works perfectly because unless you're located and domiciled and have assets and risk management departments in the areas where the traders are today, then you can never compete with that one, access to finance. But I mean, of course, I don't think just getting everybody into debt is going to undo this whole thing either. I mean, I think we need to roll back this extreme process of financialization in order that, you know, people can do productive work and productive business without relying on speculative finance, and lending in order to be able to make basic things happen, which of course is going to limit people's ability to do other things if they were to do it. I mean, why ever pay for coffee, much less prepay for it as a roaster, if you can just get it always on consignment and just plow all that cash into like $1 million coffee shop build outs, or hiring influencers to market, or whatever you can do with it. So it requires a big shift, but I think all this is doable, at least starting at a small scale. And again,
it reminds me of like what we've talked about in one of our previous videos, even, where we just, this idea of like where my head keeps going to is like, ultimately the whole system is fucked just from the perspective that you have all these people in the global south growing a crop for all these people in the global north. That alone to me is the first red flag of like, well, if you don't have the option to sell and or produce for people, and that does seem to be changing a little bit. There's more consumption in producing countries, it seems. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, well, how if a lot of it needs to be localized, but they're not drinking it or wanting it for themselves, like it's farmers are stuck. Yeah,
there'll have to be another video. I also have a big problem with this idea of that, like, oh, we need to make more coffee consumers in the growing countries, and I think, well, this misses the point of why people even grow coffee to begin with. And people grow coffee to sustain themselves, to make a living. So if like it's only people outside that want the coffee, the only people outside that are willing to or able to pay what they need through this like manipulative supply chain for them to get to do it, then I mean, maybe the coffee's not serving its purpose for the people that are growing it. So instead of just like limiting your alternatives to like, all right, who else will buy this coffee from us? Maybe think like, all right, what else can I do with this land that will allow me to meet my needs better, which will require meeting the needs of your community. So like, what is, maybe not saying like, how do I make people in the city buy coffee? Like, maybe think like, what are people in the city buying? What are the people in the city importing that I could also grow? But anyway.
That's a whole nother conversation, but that's what I tell people all the time. Like, I think one of the best things for this industry would be for there to be less coffee. And when I say this industry, the best thing for this industry, the best thing for the people that are the ones actually producing the crop. So, oh man, there we go. Woo! Get mad, say blast. Okay.
Get mad. Get mad, Priest Coffee.